Good evening. I'm Rohit Sharma and welcome to Desi From DC, coming to you every night from the heart of Washington. This is where America's power corridors meet India's prime time to break down the political, economic, and global stories that shape both nations live from Washington, DC. From Capitol Hill to Raisana Hill, we connect the dots between what happens here in Washington and how it echoes back home, India. We begin tonight with the big stories of the day. US food aid crisis sparks support. Saudi Arabia demands conditions before Trump-Israel talks. Hindu group protests CGI remarks publicly. Trump signals trade shift reducing India tariffs. Billionaire Sternlicht warns NYC could become Mumbai, and FBI director's girlfriend sues podcaster over wordless retweet. On the ongoing food crisis in the United States, this story highlights the power of community action. Across the country, local groups, nonprofits, and everyday Americans are stepping up to donate meals and funds as federal food assistance programs remain stalled. The halt comes amid continued delays in SNAP benefits, leaving millions of low-income families, seniors, and children uncertain about whether their next meal will come from. Advocates warn that these delays could worsen food insecurity, especially during the holiday season. From soup kitchens in New York City to food banks in Chicago and Los Angeles, volunteers are working around the clock to bridge the gap, and local businesses are also pitching in, offering free meals, groceries, and monetary support to keep the communities fed while federal aid remains in limbo. Experts say the community response is crucial, but it cannot replace government support. The shutdown and funding delays have left millions relying on goodwill, highlighting the broader consequences of political gridlock on everyday Americans. Meanwhile, lawmakers continue negotiations to restore federal food aid programs. But for now, local communities are taking the lead, showing resilience, compassion, and the power of coming together in the times of crisis. For families affected, these donations are more than just meals. They are lifelines, keeping hope alive while the government works to resume its programs. Big development tonight from the Middle East as Saudi Arabia sets firm conditions for formalizing ties with Israel ahead of upcoming talks with US President Donald Trump. The kingdom is signaling it will only advance diplomatic and economic relations if its core regional and security demands are met. Saudi officials have emphasized that any agreement must address Palestinian statehood, security guarantees, and water and energy cooperation in the region. Analysts say the move reflects Riyadh's desire to maintain strategic leverage before entering high-stakes negotiations with Israel and Washington. The announcement comes amid rising tensions in the Gulf and the broader Middle East, where US influence, Iranian activity, and regional alliances remain in flux. Observers suggest Saudi Arabia is positioning itself as a key arbitrator in any peace or normalization process. Experts note that the kingdom's firm stance could reshape the timeline and terms for Israel-Saudi relations, highlighting the delicate balance between economic incentives and the long-standing political demands. Trump's involvement adds a layer of uncertainty as negotiations may hinge on US mediation and influence. For Israel, the Saudi conditions represent both a challenge and an opportunity, offering a path to closer ties in the Gulf, but only if long-lasting and long-standing regional concerns are addressed. As the Trump-led talks approach, all eyes are on Riyadh and Jerusalem with potential ramifications, not just for liberal ties, but also for broader stability and diplomacy of the Middle East. President Donald Trump has made a historic proclamation on Veterans Day, announcing that the United States will now officially celebrate Victory Day to honor World War I and World War II, joining other nations in commemorating these pivotal victories. Speaking at a ceremony earlier today, the president highlighted that while countries like France and the UK and Russia have long marked Victory Day, the US had never had formally done so. From now on, we are going to be celebrating Victory Day for World War I and World War II, Trump declared. And he added, maybe someday somebody else will add a couple of more because we won a lot of good ones. Trump went on to thank American veterans for their service, calling them very, very special people and assuring the nation that they will always remain in country's heart. The president emphasized the importance of honoring sacrifices of those who fought for freedom and enduring legacy of American courage on the world stage. The proclamation also signals a broader push to publicly recognize America's military achievements with ceremonies and events expected nationwide. Veterans group and officials hailed the move as long overdue recognition of the nation's role in shaping global history. As November 11th marks Veterans Day in America, honoring 18 million veterans who have served the nation, President Trump's ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery, two massive parades in New York City, the country came together to recognize those who wore the uniform. But beyond the celebrations, a critical conversation about veteran mental health continues. Here's a report by Depangna Datta.
November 11th, 11 a.m. A nation pauses. Veterans Day in America isn't just another holiday. It's a promise kept. A promise to honor every man and woman who wore the uniform and defended their country. Over 18 million veterans live in the United States today. This day belongs to them. The date itself tells a story. November 11, 1918, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. The moment World War I's guns finally fell silent. Originally called the Armistice Day, President Woodrow Wilson proclaimed it in 1919 to honor those who served in the Great War. By 1954, the mission expanded. The name changed to Veterans Day, recognizing heroes from every war, every era, every generation. Here's what makes it unique. Unlike Memorial Day, which mourns the fallen, Veterans Day celebrates all veterans, living and deceased. It's about gratitude, not grief. Every year at Arlington National Cemetery, a solemn ceremony unfolds at the tomb of the unknown soldier. Wreaths are laid and the ceremony draws national attention. This year, President Trump marked the day with a wreath-laying ceremony alongside Vice President J.D. Vance.
As you know, today is not only Veterans Day, but it's my proclamation that we are now going to be saying and calling Victory Day for World War I. Victory Day. You know, I was recently at an event and I saw France was celebrating Victory Day, but we didn't. And I saw France was celebrating another Victory Day for World War II. And other countries were celebrating. They were all celebrating. We're the one that won the wars. And I said, from now on, we're going to say Victory Day for World War I and World War II. And we could do for plenty of other wars, but we'll start with those two. Maybe someday somebody else will add a couple of more because we won a lot of good ones. But when I see other countries celebrating Victory Day, I watched it. I watched UK, I watched Russia. They were celebrating Victory Day, World War II. And I said, we got to have a Victory Day. Nobody even talked about it in our country. But from now on, we're going to be celebrating Victory Day for World War I, for World War II, and frankly, for everything else.
But Arlington is just the beginning. Across America, thousands of people participate in Veterans Day marches, with the largest one being held in New York City. Communities everywhere host ceremonies, parades, and educational programs. Schools close, banks close. The country stops to say thank you. And if you see someone wearing a red poppy, you'll know why. Inspired by the World War I poem In Flanders Field, the poppy has become the symbol of remembrance, resilience blooming from sacrifice. But beyond the ceremonies lies a pressing challenge. Post-traumatic stress disorder continues to affect a significant number of veterans who have experienced combat. Mental health advocates and veteran organizations emphasize that true recognition extends beyond symbolic gestures. It requires sustained investment in mental health resources, treatment programs, and addressing the stigma that often prevents veterans from seeking help. Veterans Day 2025 serves as a reminder that the cost of service extends far beyond the battlefield. As America honors its 18 million veterans, the focus increasingly shifts to ensuring they receive the support they need, not just in parades and ceremonies, but in access to mental health care, resources, and recognition of the challenges many face long after the service ends. From Arlington to local communities nationwide, November 11th remains a day when America collectively acknowledges a debt that can never be fully repaid. With Debangna Datta, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
A group of Indian Americans staged high-profile protest in Times Square against controversial remarks made by India's Chief Justice, Justice P.S. Gavai, about Lord Vishnu. The protesters are demanding an apology, saying the comments hurt the sentiments of millions of Hindus worldwide. The demonstration featured large banners, chanting, and visual displays highlighting the community's call for respect towards religious figures. Organizers say that this is the first time such a protest has been directly taken to the streets of Times Square, one of the world's most visible public spaces. Protest leaders emphasize that their goal is to raise awareness internationally and urge the Chief Justice to clarify his remarks. Social media platforms are also amplifying the campaign, with videos and images quickly going viral among the Indian diaspora. Participants included members of Hindu cultural organizations, students, and professionals who voiced concerns over their unhappiness and what they described as a lapse in judicial decorum and cultural sensitivity. The group also stressed that these protests are peaceful, focused on dialogue and awareness rather than confrontation. Officials in New York coordinated with the organizers to ensure the protest remained orderly, while local media covered the event extensively, capturing interviews and public reactions from passerby. As the story develops, many are watching to see if Chief Justice responds and whether this demonstration sets a precedent for diaspora communities taking cultural and religious grievances on an international stage. Big news from Washington as President Donald Trump signals a major shift in the US-India trade relations, promising to reduce tariffs on Indian goods as a part of a fair trade deal. The moves come amid growing calls to strengthen economic ties with one of the world's fastest growing markets. Trump, speaking at a White House event, said they will love us again, referring to India as the US moves to ease trade restrictions and promote a more balanced partnership. The proposed tariff cuts aim to improve market access for Indian exports, particularly in sectors like steel, electronics, and textiles, while also addressing US concerns over trade deficit.
You know, we're making a deal with India, a much different deal than we had in the past. So right now they don't love me, but they'll love us again. We're getting a fair deal, just a fair trade deal. We had pretty unfair trade deals. They're very good negotiators, sir. Just you have to take a look at that, if you would, please. But we're getting close, Scott. I think we're pretty close to doing a deal that's good for everybody, right?
Officials described the agreement as a step toward a broader strategic economic relationship, one that complements existing defense and diplomatic ties between Washington and New Delhi. Analysts say the move could benefit US businesses seeking access to India's growing consumer market as well. While details are still being finalized, sources say that the deal could include phased reductions in duties, measures to protect intellectual properties, and commitments to streamline regulatory hurdles, potentially paving the way for smoother bilateral commerce. Economic experts, however, warn that implementing the deal will require careful coordination with US lawmakers who have been scrutinizing trade agreements for their impact on domestic industries and jobs. For India, the potential tariff relief comes as a welcome boost to exporters, signaling a new era of US-India economic cooperation and reinforcing the strategic partnership between two nations. Billionaire investor Barry Sternlicht has sharply criticized New York State Assemblyman and Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani and his policies, warning that the city could start to resemble Mumbai if current policies continue. Sternlicht, a prominent real estate developer and founder of Starwood Capital Group, delivered his pointed remarks at business event in Manhattan. He said that the housing regulation, tax policies, and business restrictions under Mamdani's leadership are creating an environment of over-regulation and high costs, potentially pushing investors and residents away. If these policies persist, New York will start to function more like Mumbai, with infrastructure and pressures and inefficiencies that harm economic growth, he warned. Critics argue that Sternlicht's comment highlight the growing tension between business leaders and local policymakers in New York as city officials attempt to balance affordable housing, social programs, and economic development. Analysts say such statements can influence investor sentiment and public debate over urban planning and governance. Sternlicht emphasized that the importance of creating a business-friendly climate, suggesting that without reform, New York risks losing talent and capital to other global cities with more flexible regulations. He also urged lawmakers to consider long-term infrastructure planning to sustain growth. For Mamdani and other policymakers, the challenge remains striking a balance between progressive policies and maintaining New York's status as a top-tier global business hub. As debate continues, New Yorkers and investors alike are watching closely to see whether the city can navigate these tensions and sustain both growth and inclusivity. Girlfriend of FBI Director Kash Patel has filed a $5 million lawsuit against popular podcaster over what she calls defamatory wordless retweet. The lawsuit has sparked a debate about social media accountability and the reach of online statements. According to court filings, the lawsuit claims podcaster posted a retweet without any text or comment, but paired it with an image implying misconduct by Patel's girlfriend. Legal experts say that this case highlights the growing tension over whether social media posts, even without words, can be considered defamatory. The retweet in question went viral, drawing widespread attention and online commentary. The lawsuit seeks damages for emotional distress, reputational harm, and potential loss of professional opportunities. Analysts say that the case could set a precedent for similar claims involving silent or implied online messages. The podcaster has yet to respond publicly, but the case raises broader questions about freedom of speech versus online harassment and how courts may interpret digital posts in the coming years. And that wraps up tonight's edition of Desi from DC. This is Rohit Sharma for India Today Global, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button before you leave. Stay tuned, stay informed, and as always, stay curious.